America Fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER.
Your home for news, talk, and information. 1040 WHBO Pinellas Park. Tampa Bay's all new News Talk 1040.
It's the only way I get news.
From the heart of Central Florida, you're listening to the most electrifying show in media, A Neighbor's Choice. And I'm your host, your neighbor, David Granotsky. Welcome back to the program. We're soaring high live on FM and AM. Happy to have this time with you. Once again, to understand the news like nobody else does. We do it because we're guided by the personhood principles that we espouse on this program. Unlike any other broadcast program out there, we're not going to be doing the whole left versus right thing. We're doing something bigger than that, something that's more closer to home, neighbor to neighbor. And that means skin in the game. That's what we talk about on this program. We need to have skin in the game and less tribalism governing the way we think. You see this a story that continues to show a sign that folks are not willing to cool it and use reason to deal with disagreement, but rather want to stoke up more and more problems. This is a story in Washington Times. Woke teachers want Shakespeare cut out of the curriculum because he is about white supremacy, apparently. Having Shakespeare taught is white supremacy. This is the low-level, dim way of looking at the world that tribalism draws us into. And a lot of folks who think they're smart are buying into it because, like a religion, it provides them the feeling of being better than other people. If it makes them feel like they're a part of some chosen, called out community, if they can understand the conspiracy theories that are being, promoted within the group, that they can be a part of the special awakened crowd, right? This was the idea behind this concept of the woke. It is a religion, and it must root out any blemish, any sin, any disagreement from the establishment perspective, and it's nice to have the convenient support of the establishment for this religion, right? That makes it a lot easier for them to get away with bullying people, and demonizing people, pitting people against each other by race. It's always easier to do that when you have the full weight and power of the old time religion that is DC pushing for you, backing you up, helping you have legitimacy for your ideas. That's what we found out, that, critical theory was being taught in all the different federal bureaucracies. So teaching a conspiracy theory based on violence, aggressive rhetoric that says that language is violence, and therefore if you say the wrong language, it justifies violence as self-defense, that's the kind of thing that your federal taxpayer dollars are going to be promoting more and more and more of. That's what you want your children to learn, to see everything about William Shakespeare and say, you know what, that's all about white supremacy. Can't have Shakespeare. Can't have Shakespeare in this insane and demented religion that sweeps like a contagion. And because people want easy answers to life's problems. They want easy answers that make them feel better about themselves and put other people down that they're jealous of. And envy is the thing that makes the political world go round and round. Envy is the fuel of politics. And so a woke religion is going to be a wonderful opportunity to stoke envy in more effective ways than ever before. Look at this story in the Washington Times about this Shakespeare. The crown teachers once put on Shakespeare now lies uneasy upon his head as the English playwright comes under assault from teachers who fault his unwoke attitudes regarding race, sexuality, gender, and class. For the new breed of teachers, William Shakespeare is seen less as an icon of literature and more as a tool of imperial oppression, an author who should be dissected in class or banished from the curriculum entirely. This is about white supremacy and colonization, declared the teachers who founded #DisruptText, a group that wants staples of Western literature removed or subjected to withering criticism. No, it's about envy. It's about jealousy. The anti-Shakespeare teachers say fans of the plays ignore the author's problematic worldview. They say readers of Shakespeare should be required to address the, quote, whiteness of their thinking. If Shakespeare must be taught, these educators say, then it should be presented with watered-down versions of the original or supplemental text focused on equality issues. Elizabeth Nelson, who teaches English at Twin City Academies in St. Paul, Minnesota, told School Library Journal she gives her students Marxist theory when reading Shakespeare's tragedy Coriolanus about the Roman leader. So, hey, wait a second. I thought that this whole woke stuff has nothing to do with Marxism, remember? Wait a second. What does that have to do? You see how they don't even know what they believe? They just say whatever they want in the moment to lie, to divide, and to stoke hate. This is the most hateful bigotry we've ever seen sweep the country so fast, so quickly. In our time today. A hateful bigotry that wants to demonize anything that doesn't fit their political aspirations. I don't even know what is Shakespeare, why does Shakespeare threaten this these Marxist folks like Elizabeth Nelson, apparently, who's teaching your children English at Twin City Academy in St. Paul, Minnesota. Sarah Mulhern Gross told the Journal that she delivered toxic masculinity analysis to her students reading Romeo and Juliet at High Technology High School in Lincroft, New Jersey. The war against Shakespeare did not begin in 2021. Last December marked the 5th anniversary of students at the University of Pennsylvania removing a portrait of the bard from their Ivy League halls. The organizers behind #DisruptText put Shakespeare in the social justice crosshairs in October 2018. The School Library Journal, which describes itself as the premier publication for librarians and information specialists who work with children and teens, joined the fight earlier this year and offered young adult novels as alternatives to Shakespeare. The librarians also showcase an essay questioning the contemporary value of the playwright responsible for classics such as Romeo and Juliet, Macbeth, and King Lear. A growing number of educators coming to the conclusion that it's time for Shakespeare. Should we read more? It's time for Shakespeare to be set aside or de-emphasized to make room for modern, diverse, and inclusive voices. Educators grappling with these questions are teaching, critiquing, questioning, and abandoning Shakespeare's work and offering alternatives for updating and enhancing curricula, it said. Some scholars are dubious that blacklisting Shakespeare would enhance education. It's a new version of cancel culture, said Peter Wood, president of the Conservative National Association of Scholars. They have little regard for the great books. A study last year by the association pinpointed a 1987 march at Stanford University as a turning point in modern education when Democratic activist Jesse Jackson led undergraduates chanting, "Hey, ho, Western Civ has got to go." Within a year, Stanford had erased Western civilization requirements for undergraduates. At about the same time, classrooms everywhere began adopting a multicultural agenda hostile towards white male authors, according to the report. Indeed, the opposition to Shakespeare appears rooted in his status more than in an argument. the modern teachers say, we believe that Shakespeare, like any other playwright, no more and no less, has literary merit, wrote Lorena German, a teacher who penned Disrupting Shakespeare and is often engaged in Twitter discussions on the subject. He is not universal in a way that other authors are not. He is not more timeless than anyone else. The organizers of Disrupt Text, whose work is also featured by the School Library Journal and hosts regularly Twitter discussions on various writers and topics, did not respond to emails about this. So, you know, this is what you're going to have to see more and more of unless you stop, you know, funding the beast. Stop sending your kids to these garbage universities where they learn these ideas and these six-figure, rich, decadent Marxist professors, right? Stop sending your kids to those schools, and at the same time, stop sending your kids to the public schools where these people want to attack anything that doesn't fit their political agenda as well. We just have to stop participating in the whole thing. Withdraw your participation, your funding, and your attendance to garbage, failing, hateful, bigoted institutions. That's the only way these folks have power, is because we have allowed taxpayer-funded education to dominate the marketplace. Without government monopoly, coercion-based funding of education, these stupid ideas would not have had the room to grow, the funding to grow, and to infect people with hateful ideology all this time. There simply wouldn't be money for this to the same degree. They wouldn't have the monopoly of discourse that they now have with this critical theory nonsense, which stews and stokes hatred of every differentiation, every deviation from postmodern ideology, and attacks even things like great works of literature. Whether you like Shakespeare or not, this is not something to get into a low resolution level of analysis in which we're going to try to cancel his existence from education. What a bunch of Luddite garbage. We'll take a quick break and return in just a moment on A Neighbor's Choice. Who is your neighbor? Dave and Wally are team drivers for Oakley Transport. One day, they came across a very serious accident on the highway. Some might pass on by, but Dave and Wally saw there was no time to waste. They jumped into action and saved two people's lives with moments to spare. That's the kind of courageous love we need more of today. It reflects the respected culture Oakley Transport develops with their driving professionals. CDLA licensed drivers. Join Oakley Transport today for a rewarding career. Visit oakleytransport.com. That's oakleytransport.com. Hello, this is David Kronosky with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a sixth-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR.
Are you ready to transform your career? Jess Smith was too. She was stuck on a job that was controlling her life, consuming her free time, and offering little opportunity for growing her pay. Then she found FinTech Mortgage Association, and she never looked back. FinTech Mortgage Association makes home lending simple, and they take care of home buyers like family. Using technology to make everyone's life easier, FinTech Mortgage Association equips each of their loan solutions architects with the tools they need to build a career with a schedule they control, a product they can take pride in, and an earning potential that is life-changing. Unleash your true potential. Join FinTech Mortgage Association. Visit finmay.com. That's FINMAE.com. You're in charge now. NMLS ID 1492187. Equal housing lender.
You can't have a fresh outlook on the new year if you're staring through a chipped or cracked windshield. Autoglass America will fix it and give you up to $150 cash back to help pay holiday bills. With qualifying insurance, we'll come to you with mobile service and install a premium quality replacement with a lifetime warranty at no cost to you. Get a great outlook on the new year with a new windshield and New Year's cash from Autoglass America. 813-96-GLASS, 813-96-GLASS.
Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Gronowski. So let's turn to some other interesting news. This is in big league politics, reporting on New York Times. They've retracted the story claiming that Capitol officer Brian Sicknick was killed in the riot. This is by Richard Moorhead, who says that the New York Times has retracted this story, that he died as a result of being struck by a fire extinguisher during the January 6th Capitol riot on Sunday. Law enforcement officials initially said Mr. Sicknick was struck with a fire extinguisher, but weeks later, police sources and investigators were at odds over whether he was hit. Medical experts have said he did not die of blunt force trauma, according to one law enforcement official. That's the quote from the story. The New York Times had originally claimed that Sicknick suffered brain injuries. Evidence has since emerged revealing that Sicknick collapsed at a USCP facility following the riot's conclusion, having texted his brother that he was all right after the event. FBI investigators are reportedly struggling to build a homicide case in Sicknick's death, with charges yet to be filed more than a month after the event. A formal autopsy report is yet to be released in regards to Sicknick's death, a highly unusual situation, especially with the event colored with controversy. The New York Times spread the idea that the New Jersey Air National Guard veteran and longtime Capitol officer died as a result of injuries inflicted by a rioter. This now appears highly unlikely. It's difficult to speculate as to how Sicknick died, but in the absence of a homicide, it appears probable as he died as a result of a medical condition following the event. Mark Santora, Megan Spezia, and Mike Baker were listed as the authors of the report indicating Sicknick had been murdered. The New York Times at the time had claimed that its reporter was made aware of the Sicknick's cause of death by a source familiar with the Capitol Police. It appears likely that the New York Times source had no direct line of communication with the agency and was instead a Democrat member of Congress or staffer, or even a Washington, D.C. district official. So, you know, it just goes to show that these folks in the media, they use all this false information all the time to create narratives that give their particular ideology power. It's it. It's a simple formula. They don't mind bending the truth, and they make small corrections, maybe on occasion, when it's too blatant to deny. But you never see those corrections. They're always just tucked away. You never see it. They get their narrative out there, and that's all that matters. And it works on a lot of people who are unfortunately just buying into whatever, you know, these establishment state allied media outlets want to push them. And that's a concerning thing to see. When you see this story here in MSN.com, it says the agency founded because of 9/11 is shifting to face the threat of domestic terrorism. When you see stories like this, you think, my goodness, is America ever going to maintain any of its liberties or just continually slink into a backwards, tyrannical, out of control situation where people are turned into tribalism, turned towards tribalism? On a Saturday morning in August 2019, a 21-year-old man, white man with ear protectors, safety glasses, and an AK-47 style rifle walked into a crowded Walmart in El Paso, his pockets bulging with ammunition. He had driven hundreds of miles across Texas, prosecutors said, because he wanted to kill Latinos. Kevin McAleenan, the acting Homeland Security Secretary, was at a Coast Guard picnic in Virginia that day, and soon the urgent messages began arriving. A sinking feeling of terror set in as the magnitude of the attack became clear. It was devastating. The article continues to say basically that this is going down further in the article. It says, contrary to some television portrayals, Department of Homeland Security does not have a standing contingent of armed Homeland Security agents with a specific mandate to stop domestic terrorism, but it has agencies and programs that it could expand to devote more attention and resources to risks posed by homegrown terrorists. DHS Office of Intelligence and Analysis collects information from the FBI, private contractors, and state and local law enforcement agencies to organize and disseminate threat reports. And it says, going on, it says, in the post 9/11 world, the threat was foreign terrorism. Tom Ridge, the first DHS secretary, said in an interview, the CIA and the military were the tip of the spear, and we filled the defensive gap. But now there's another adjective in front of terrorism, domestic terrorism. Yet Ridge cautioned against DHS turning its attention away from foreign threats and other priorities. What people don't understand and people need to understand is that DHS has so many other tasks embedded in its mission, he said. It's a multitask organization, and DHS has to be careful moving in that direction because I still don't think it's their primary job in relationship to the domestic terrorist threat. So that's going to be the thing. You know, doesn't that remind you also of what the former CIA guy said, where he said that we need to have counterinsurgency tactics used for people? And then you had John Brennan, former CIA director, saying, you know, that would include, he said, authoritarians, moderates, whatever. I don't even remember all the words. He said basically everybody, authoritarians, libertarians, everybody that he don't like needs to be looked at like a potential counterinsurgent or something. And he said, these people have no clue the level of disregard of the constitutional constraints that implies, that you're going to look at everybody who disagrees with a narrow perspective and turn everybody into a potential, suspect. And see, this is the thing. Folks who were fighting for civil liberties back when 9/11 happened, a lot of conservatives were attacking them. But now that same apparatus, the Patriot Act and getting people to look at their neighbors with suspicion, like what happened to some Muslim Americans after 9/11. Now that whole machine, they want to turn it on to what? 75 million people who voted for Donald Trump, and how many more tens of millions didn't vote for either and don't want to participate in the political nonsense that DC has to offer? This is not a healthy direction to go. This is not normal. It's not okay to treat people this way. It's something that needs to be really challenged. This idea that, you know, the war on terror, they've been going on since 2000. That's been going on since 2001. And what has happened out of that? Now we're at the point where the last conflict in Syria, we were arming and supporting Al-Qaeda, the same organization that attacked the 9/11 buildings, right? So what's going on? What kind of war on terror do they want to bring home? It's horrible. And what about all the other terrorist cells that they continue to fund to help overthrow countries like Libya and Syria? What are those guys going to do? This is a madhouse because we have lost our way. We've lost the principle of the rule of law, and we are not living with any moral foundations under the way we do our governance. Respect for human life, respect for all human beings, no matter who they are, no matter where they live, no matter what their ideas are, their religion. That's the way of civilization. Back in a moment.
There is all kinds of lunacy going on. The madness of 2020.
Weekdays 11 to 2.
I'm just so fed up with these Democrats. It's unbelievable.
Get it straight from Chris Plant.
They're so hypocritical. It makes me sick.
It's the Chris Plant Show.
This has just got me going all
And the left is waging war against the police in the United States. And
Telling it like it is.
You should be thanked profusely for getting to the point. You're a voice of reason in the sea of idiots.
The Chris Plant Show. Weekdays 11 to 2. News Talk 1040 WHBO.
The snow and deep cold is taking its toll in Texas. Power demand beyond what the electrical grid can supply. Blackouts could get more widespread. Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner today.
I just want to be very upfront with people in the city. If you are without power right now, it is very conceivable that you could be without power throughout the rest of today and possibly even going into tomorrow.
States running low on vaccine supplies. At the same time, health officials are expanding the eligibility for who can get a shot. California forced to shut down several mass vaccination sites. 7 Republican senators who voted guilty in President Trump's impeachment trial facing instant backlash at home. Senator Bill Cassidy already censured by the GOP in Louisiana. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said today that Congress will establish an independent 9/11-style commission to look into the deadly insurrection that took place at the U.S. Capitol. Dave Packer, ABC News.
Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. David Gronowski here, looking at the news as we continue together. Let's hear this clip here from 60 Minutes. This is with Bill Gates and Anderson Cooper as they test sausage and yogurt products made from a microbe-based protein, according to 60 Minutes.
Because cows account for around 4% of all greenhouse gases, Gates has invested in 2 companies making plant-based meat substitutes, Impossible Foods and Beyond Meat. But farming the vegetables used to make many meat alternatives emits gases as well. So Gates is also backing a company that's created an entirely new food source.
This company, Nature's Find, is using fungi, and then they turn them into sausage and yogurt. Pretty amazing.
When you say fungi, do you mean like a mushroom or a microbe?
It's a microbe.
The microbe was discovered in the ground in a geyser in Yellowstone National Park. Without soil or fertilizer, it can be grown to produce this nutritional protein that can then be turned into a variety of foods with a small carbon footprint.
This is the yogurt.
Oh, that's good.
Wow.
I've had like cashew yogurt or oat yogurt. It's sort of along those lines.
Yeah, with the burgers, they're, like Beyond Impossible. They're getting close to the real thing, but you can still tell.
Uh-huh.
These, I'm not sure I could have tell. No, I'm more of a burger expert than I am a yogurt expert.
Uh-huh.
So there's Bill Gates. He wants you to all eat microbe, yogurt, microbe food, microbe made. And I know yogurt is made with microbes. I understand that, but he wants to replace all animal products as part of this attack against real ancestral eating. And so you'll see that continue. I think they're going to try to tax meat, try to make it very unaffordable. It's already expensive for a lot of folks, but they're going to try to make it more out of reach in a time in which everybody needs to be eating more meat because they're realizing how stupid the food pyramid's pseudoscience garbage has been for decades. Well, we got to, it's like anything good that happens, the media and all these little crony capitalists like Bill Gates, it's like they have to squash out anything good. So it's like finally, after decades of being totally misinformed with garbage pseudoscience funded by big food companies that want you to hate like a dumb lemming the very foods that make us the healthiest, like saturated fat and ancestral eating, animal fats, animal foods. They've done this for decades, getting us sick with diabetes and cancer and heart disease and Alzheimer's, all these so-called diseases of civilization that are basically fueled by eating seed oils and toxic garbage food. And so people eat this stuff, and now people are finally, because of the internet and decentralized information where you can hear the doctors like the folks that we have on this program come on and tell you the truth. Now they can't let anything good happen without trying to destroy it. So now they're going to go push what? Well, we're going to try to. So that's probably why Bill Gates, owns the most farmland in America. For one reason is that he can go ahead and start trying to crank out this plant goop and microbial fungus meat replacement. And then that'll nice conveniently time with a nice push by folks like him to, lobby for taxes and regulations to cripple and make it very difficult for people to eat animal-based foods, all with their little self-righteous, unproven theory that somehow that's better for the planet. When we know that locally raised beef, before government came into the industry and made it turned into a wartime style centralized industrial model dependent on soy and corn for fuel. But before that, when it was more decentralized, that animals living in a natural, sustainable way of living off the land in local farms, that was not bad for the environment. So government intervenes in the market of beef and turns it into an industrial thing with a lot of problems on a lot of different levels. And then they say, hey, we'll fix that problem. We'll get you to we're going to make it so that you can't afford meat as much because it's destroying the planet. And we've got to build back better. And part of building back better is that you eat plant goop, industrial sludge, fake meat, and microbial fungal growth meat in your mouth. That's what they want you to eat. I'd like to see what those ingredients are. The things that's probably got a massive amount of linoleic acid of some sort or another, and things that your body does not need to have healthy, thriving life. But that's, it's like, I'm amazed at how these media outlets and government agencies and crony capitalists can just be wrong on everything. Why can't they be right on one thing, They're wrong on food. They're wrong on medicine. They're wrong on freedom. They're wrong on civil liberties. They're wrong on war and peace issues. They're wrong on homeschool and private school freedom. They're wrong on everything we can think of. They're wrong on Shakespeare. They hate Shakespeare now. Apparently that's the new thing for some of them. So that's the new thing, is that, they want to be against anything that gives people meaning or happiness or health, apparently, because you can't even have meat now without that being attacked. And now you have to go get you your microbial fungal burger that Bill Gates wants you to have. And I'm sure he'll use his little crony powers to really do a number on your ability to have fair access to low cost, high quality animal products. Because he's a crony capitalist and he wants to, he thinks he's a god and he can shape the world the way he wants it, apparently. That's what he thinks. Now, here's another story that shows what happens when we lose our way with liberty. This is a story in The Sun. It says, jab pass. Brits may have to show a COVID vaccine passport to go to pub or restaurant, by Catherine Ferguson. So proposals to introduce documents to let immunized Brits lead a normal life are under consideration, Dominique Raab suggested. Apparently, this is the first time a cabinet minister has broken cover to say that businesses in the UK could use them to let in or bar punters. He told LBC it is something that hasn't been ruled out and is something under consideration. But of course, you have got to make it workable. The thing, when I have looked at this, whether it is on the international, domestic, or local level, you have to be confident the document being presented is something you can rely on, that it is an accurate reflection of the status of the individual. I am not sure there is a foolproof answer in the way it is sometimes presented, but we will look at all the options. Whitehall officials have been drawing up plans to use vaccine passports to let Brits jet off abroad for their summer holidays. And Boris Johnson hinted they could be used to unlock all sorts of activities forbidden by COVID restrictions. So it's like a video game now, see? This is like a big pharma video game. You have to you have to perform certain things. This is your grand Build Back Better garbage. This is what it looks like. You're treated like cattle, worse than cattle. And you're sitting there, oh, you have to stay in and you can unlock certain restrictions like achievement points on an Xbox video game if you comply like a good passive little sheep with something that has these vaccines have been rushed out to market with no legal immunity. They're totally immune. No legal skin in the game for these companies. And some of these new vaccines are things. Was it Moderna? This is their first drug they've ever even brought to market, from what I understand. And so they don't care about your bodily autonomy. Remember they said, "Oh, my body, my choice." No, it's not. When they want you to comply like a good sheep, to build back better, to have a nice little control over which restaurant you can get into or whether you can fly or whatever you can travel, they're going to build back better by making you a little sheep, a little cattle. But you're going to sit down and you're going to sit up when they tell you to. You're going to stand up when they tell you to. You're going to sit down when they tell you to. You're going to sit home when they tell you to. And that's what Build Back Better means from these jerks. I can't believe people even tolerate this stuff and vote for this stuff. It's amazing. That's the stuff that blows your mind the most. It's one thing if this was just, imposed on people without their participation, but a lot of the folks, they gleefully cheer for this stuff. Like I told you, I told you, Joe Biden and Boris Johnson, these folks could build a full universal program where they're going to expand all the federal prisons that they have and say, we're going to provide full 24/7 protection in our prisons. We're going to expand the cells. You're going to get 3 government-provided meals a day. You're going to get government-provided recreational time. You're going to get government-provided health care. You're going to get government-provided library and work, where we're going to assign you work in that prison system. And there would be millions and millions of people who would gladly sign up, especially if you told them that was part of Building Back Better to reduce carbon emissions and to reduce, the risk of getting COVID or something. There are millions and millions of people all around you who would go along with that right now. That's the sorry state of education. That's the sorry state of moral dignity and human dignity and self-respect. That's the sorry state that we're in today. And it doesn't have to stay that way. We can move people towards loving themselves and loving their neighbor as themselves, but it's going to take a lot of hard work to get people to snap out of this self-hatred that this system breeds and promotes and preys on. This self-hatred that makes people say, hey, yeah, let me have a little certificate that I have to be forced to use drugs that don't have any legal immunity from a company like Moderna, for example, this is their first drug ever. No legal immunity, no nothing if you have a problem. No choice. They want to act like they own the planet. They want to act like they own this planet, these folks, these bureaucrats and their crony capitalist allies. That they own this planet, you cannot move, and if you don't agree with them, you're going to be stuck in a prison cell, basically, in your own house. You can't fly anywhere, you can't see the sunset, and Antarctica, they own everything. You can't do anything. That's the way. Is that the world we're going to have for the rest of our lives? Is that what we're going to put up with? That kind of hellhole? That kind of disgusting repudiation of everything that it means to be free? That you got to be like a submitted cattle with a health certificate? Like, this is Nazi paper garbage. Where you have to have a certificate. You can't have your own immune system approach. You have to surrender your immune sovereignty over to companies that have rushed products out with no legal immunity. This is stupidity. Who in the world, what grown adult takes this seriously in terms of something that should be done? Is you going to lock down the planet for the rest of our lives? Is this it for the world? No more free travel? Everybody has to have a global passport to get into a pub or something? What kind of fascistic nonsense is the world falling into? The world has to stop this. This is a global thing that we need to wake up to. You should not allow fascist busybodies who think they're better than you and they think that they can rule you and tell you when to get out of your restaurant, when you can get into your restaurant, who can get in, when you can get out and get fresh air, when you can go see the pyramids in Egypt. No, they don't. Who the hell do these people think they are? They don't own the sunset. They don't own the planet. They don't own the if you want to go see the Great Pyramid, go see the Great Pyramid. If you want to go on the Nile River, go on the Nile River. If you want to go to Africa, go to Africa. If you want to go to, South America, if you want to see the Machu Picchu, whatever, you should be able to enjoy your life. And the whole world needs to wake up to this nonsense where these idiots are telling people you kind of stay in like a dog until you get your stupid papers to get into a pub. What? My goodness. And then they're going to tell you that your biggest problem is Shakespeare. Your biggest problem in life, these dumb Luddites want to tell you, these losers, these fascist losers in the press, they want to tell you your biggest problem is that your kid might read Shakespeare. Meanwhile, they don't want to let you go into a restaurant without a health certificate. Like a dog, where you got your chip. Okay, let me see. When's your last time did you get your 16th COVID shot? You got to get it every year. Before you can't come to the pub because you've had 60 COVID shots, but you haven't had the 61st. Oh, you didn't get your 61st, you can't come to the pub. I mean, what the pathetic nonsense. If this doesn't just make you sick and tired of the whole fascist game, what in the blue world would wake you up at this point? Lousy loser fascists. It's embarrassing. These people are pathetic. They don't even understand the health of human bodies. These are the dumb idiots that got everybody eating linoleic acid and margarine, killing millions of grandmas. People wouldn't even have this lethality of this virus if it wasn't for these same idiots telling you need a health certificate to get to the pub if they weren't cramming down seed oils down grandmas for decades. These people have no business telling you to do anything in your life. They have no whatsoever business laying a single fascist little finger, grubby little fascist finger on you and your family's life. Don't let them bully you. We'll take a break and return in just a moment on A Neighbor's Choice. David Granosky here. Let me tell you about a man named Gabriel. Every day, Gabriel puts on his boots and drives across America to make sure our store shelves stay stocked with the food people count on. See, Gabriel served our country overseas. He knows that America stands for freedom, quality, and caring for others the way we would like to be treated. That's why when Gabriel saw food shelves getting low during the pandemic, he hit the road as a driver with Oakley Transport. In the land of the free, where no one should go hungry, we need heroes like Gabriel to help keep America fed. CDLA driving professionals. Join Oakley Transport today. Keep America fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER. Hello, this is David Granosky with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a sixth-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR.
Are you ready to transform your career? Jess Smith was too. She was stuck in a job that was controlling her life, consuming her free time, and offering little opportunity for growing her pay. Then she found FinTech Mortgage Association, and she never looked back. FinTech Mortgage Association makes home lending simple, and they take care of home buyers like family. Using technology to make everyone's life easier, FinTech Mortgage Association equips each of their loan solutions architects with the tools they need to build a career with a schedule they control, a product they can take pride in, and an earning potential that is life-changing. Unleash your true potential. Join FinTech Mortgage Association. Visit finmay.com. That's FINMAE.com. You're in charge now. NMLS ID 1492187. Equal housing lender.
You can't have a fresh outlook on the new year if you're staring through a chipped or cracked windshield. Autoglass America will fix it and give you up to $150 cash back to help pay holiday bills. With qualifying insurance, we'll come to you with mobile service and install a premium quality replacement with a lifetime warranty at no cost to you. Get a great outlook on the new year with a new windshield and New Year's cash from Autoglass America. 813-96-GLASS, 813-96-GLASS.
Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. This is David Gronowski, your host. So, Bill Gates is off to save the world again. This is a guy who, has not really had much of a track record of doing anything that is related to the things he's trying to change now. But he wants to change everything. That's why you get all these puff pieces coming out about him from the little state media, little state corporatist media like CBS News, doing a big puff piece. Anderson Cooper reporting for 60 Minutes here, These outdated media outlets with outdated ideas from an outdated billionaire who thinks he's God, but he's not. He doesn't even know what an atom is. I'm telling you, if you listen to A Neighbor's Choice and Our Science and You know more about atoms than Bill Gates knows. Okay, he doesn't know anything, and that's not too much to commend because his bar of understanding is very low. He's too busy trying to get you to eat microbial fungal burgers, fungal growth in your mouth. That's what he wants you to eat. Made in a lab, plant goop. Anderson Cooper sycophantically asks him, "Of what we can see right now of us sitting around here, what specifically would be impacted?" Bill Gates says, "Well, young child, this cement would be made in a different way. The steel in the building would be different. The meat in the burgers, a big deal. These, all this plastic and paper, potatoes." Anderson Cooper replies sheepishly, "With potatoes, you're talking about fertilizer, the irrigation system that's used." Bill Gates replies, "My son, all the tractors, the transport." Cooper, "The trucks that bring them to this restaurant, all that has to change too?" Bill Gates, "Yes, my son, when you're going to zero, you don't get to skip anything." Gates says going to zero means eliminating all green gas emissions, or else. Or else what? You going to blot out the sun next, Bill? That's what you said. You want to shoot missiles into the sun? Or else what, Bill? What do you want to do next? Anderson Cooper, "If they wait 100 years to do this." Bill Gates, "It's way too late. Then the natural ecosystems will have failed. The instability, the migration, those things will get really, really bad well before the end of the century." Anderson Cooper replies, "When you talk about migration, You're talking about hundreds of thousands of people trying to move from North Africa to Europe every year. Bill Gates says, exactly. The Syrian war was a 20th of what climate migration will look like. So the deaths per year are way 10 times greater than what we've experienced in this pandemic. And there's a little CBS with the little footnotes you need to know to understand their billionaires' plans. In a new book, How to Avoid a Climate Disaster, Gates outlines all the solutions he believes we need. He says the U.S. has to leave the world getting to zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. He supports President Biden's decision to rejoin the Paris Climate Agreement, but is asking the administration to massively increase the budget for climate and clean energy research to $35 billion a year. So, this is just a press release for special interests who don't even understand science. I don't see Bill Gates telling you about low temperature nuclear energy because he's a crony capitalist. He wants to make money off of things that require massive government subsidy to make them affordable or make them happen. Low temperature nuclear energy is a carbon free, right? Abundant type of energy that wouldn't need a meter or anything, but that doesn't help people who want to make money off of government toll trolls like Bill Gates. And so he wants to, use government like Biden and the Paris Climate Agreement to centrally plan what everybody's allowed to do. Anderson Cooper goes on to say in the interview, you've said the government needs to do the hard stuff, but not just go after the low-hanging fruit. What's low-hanging fruit? Bill Gates says, passenger cars, part of the electric generation with renewables. The things everybody knows about. That's getting almost all the money, not the hard parts, which is the industrial piece, including the steel and the cement. Those pieces we've hardly started to work on. No one thinks about cement and steel, but making it accounts for 16% of all carbon dioxide emissions. And demand is only growing. The world will add an estimated 2.5 trillion square feet of buildings by 2060. That's the equivalent of putting up another New York City every month for the next 40 years. So one innovative company Gates has been pouring money into is Carbon Cure. They inject captured carbon dioxide into concrete. I mean, these are like gimmick little indulgence companies, They don't know anything about how the world actually works. They can't tell you about 24/7 solar panels. They don't know anything about low temperature elemental transmutation. They're not doing anything that's actually really helping people. It's all about little token Mickey Mouse solutions that always require massive government control, regulation, and subsidy to make happen. I'm not saying that every company Bill Gates invests in is not a good company. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the things that I see displayed time and time again from these crony capitalists are things that don't really make sense in a free market. If you actually understand how energy works, if you actually understand how atoms work, you wouldn't be listening to this stuff with any kind of seriousness. Bill Gates is just desperate to want to feel like a god. He doesn't know science. He doesn't understand science. He doesn't understand anthropology. He doesn't understand economics. He doesn't understand the immune system. He doesn't understand health. Doesn't understand nutrition. He's just got a lot of money, and he's a rich kid who's used to using government to get what he wants. And he's just going to try to make a holy hell mess out of everything until he feels like he gets to the status he wants. But it's not going to work. It's going to fail. It's just going to fail. But that's okay, because those of us with real skin in the game, we'll go ahead and create energy too cheap to meter without using a single government dime to do it. And we'll go ahead and solve diseases without using a single side effect riddled drug to do it. And we'll go ahead and take care of the environment with good ancestral eating and good fatty ribeyes. And those will continue on way past Bill Gates' expiration on this earth. We'll still be enjoying good ribeyes, and his ideas will have failed. They will have expired. And we'll move on with our joyous, beautiful, fat ribeyes in good health. I'm David Granovsky. Godspeed.
home for news, talk, and information. 1040 WHBO Pinellas Park. Tampa Bay's all new News Talk 1040.
It's the only way I get news.
From ABC News, I'm Dave Packer. Utilities in 14 states are being told by the Southwest Power Pool, which controls the electrical grid there, to start rolling blackouts after winter storms and extreme cold have spiked electrical demand. That power pool extends to states from Montana to Louisiana. Much of the power demand coming from Texas, where the number of customers without power is near 3 million, over 1 million in the Houston area alone. Mayor Sylvester Turner.
It is even possible, with the weather getting colder as we move towards the evening, that number can even grow.
Blackouts mean many will have no way to heat their homes as temperatures will soon drop again to the teens. With former President Trump's impeachment trial over, President Biden forging ahead. ABC News political director Rick Klein.
He'll be out in the country for the first time as president through the Midwest, including Wisconsin, starting tomorrow. He's trying to sell that COVID relief package. He knows that time is ticking down on any chance of a bipartisan package. And look, this is where he gets his presidency back. It's President's Day, and it's a gift to Joe Biden that he doesn't have to worry about the Trump impeachment.
Biden finishing up his first weekend at Camp David as president. States running low on vaccine supplies. At the same time, health officials are expanding the eligibility for who can now get a shot. California forced to shut down several mass vaccination sites. ABC's Alex Stone is in L.A.
Again today, all city-run mass vaccination sites like the one at Dodger Stadium are shut down because they have no vaccine to give. They ran out last Thursday, and they've been closed since. The county of L.A. is only giving out second-dose shots, but it comes as FEMA is opening its second mass vaccination site in California here in the L.A. area.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said today that Congress will establish an independent 9/11-style commission to look into the deadly insurrection that took place at the U.S. Capitol. Markets were closed today for President's Day. You're listening to ABC News.
The IRS doesn't mess around. If they want your money, they'll take it. They can take your paycheck and bank accounts too, even threaten your home or business. Don't take on the IRS alone. If you owe back taxes, the smartest thing you can do is call Optima Tax Relief. The experts at Optima specialize in a powerful IRS tax assistance program called the Fresh Start Initiative. And their clients that qualify are saving thousands, even tens of thousands. One call starts the process to stop the demand letters, stop aggressive collection actions, and stop the IRS from targeting you. But don't delay. It's important to act now while you still have options. Optima is A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau. Optima has already resolved over $1 billion of tax debt for their clients. Get your life back. For tax help you need, for tax help you can trust, call Optima now for your free consultation.
Call 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460.
Optima Tax Relief. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Iran making moves as the Biden administration weighs rejoining the Iran nuclear deal.
In what may be another attempt to pressure the Biden administration, Iran announcing it successfully tested a new smart short-range missile and announcing it will hold a joint naval drill with Russia in the Indian Ocean soon. This just days after Iran's intelligence minister warned his country may be forced to seek nuclear weapons if U.S. sanctions are not lifted. Israel estimates it would take Iran at least 2 years to develop a nuclear bomb. Jordana Miller, ABC News, Jerusalem.
Britain's vaccination campaign hits its target.
The goal was ambitious to vaccinate with the first of 2 shots 15 million of the oldest and most vulnerable in the UK. Over 90% of the over 70s have been vaccinated. Phase 2 has begun with those 65 and older now being invited to come in for a jab. Tom Rivers, ABC News, London.
And Larry the Cat, also known as the UK's mouse catcher-in-chief, is marking 10 years today in Downing Street. Larry was adopted by then Prime Minister David Cameron to deal with a rat pack seen near the Prime Minister's office. Larry, once a stray, now has his own Twitter account. And in a tweet, Larry said, he tweets, "The key thing to remember is that I live here permanently. The politicians just lodge with me for a bit until they're fired." This is ABC News.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but thought it would be too difficult? Then try Babbel. Babbel starts by teaching you words and phrases that gradually get more complex. Soon, you're practicing short conversations. So in 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking a new language in a few weeks. Babbel is built around real life. It teaches you practical conversations that you will actually use. Babbel, language for life. Celebrating 10 million subscriptions sold. Now try Babbel for free. Just text TRY to 64,000 to start learning a new language today. That's TRY to 64,000.
Dave Packer, ABC News.
Who is your neighbor? Dave and Wally are team drivers for Oakley Transport. One day, they came across a very serious accident on the highway. Some might pass on by, but Dave and Wally saw there was no time to waste. They jumped into action and saved 2 people's lives with moments to spare. That's the kind of courageous love we need more of today. It reflects the respected culture Oakley Transport develops with their driving professionals. CDLA licensed drivers. Join Oakley Transport today for a rewarding career. Visit oakleytransport.com. That's oakleytransport.com.
Your home for news, talk, and information. 1040 WHBO Pinellas Park. Tampa Bay's all new News Talk 1040.
It's the only way I get news.
From the heart of Central Florida, you're listening to the most electrifying show in media, A Neighbor's Choice. I'm your host, your neighbor, David Gornosky. So glad to be back with you once again on FM and AM, podcast, and video stream. Our website is aneighborschoice.com. That's aneighborschoice.com. You can also email me hello@aneighborschoice.com, where we'll be glad to get to your suggestions and guest recommendations. We enjoy all of it. Looking on our YouTube video stream right now as we go live, as Brandon says, it seems to me that a great source of the trouble now afflicting us is due to a lack in courage among a great number of our citizens. I agree. That's what's in short supply is courage. A lot of folks want to tell you what they think they know, but they don't have the courage to admit that maybe a lot of what they think they know is actually just stuff that other people have told them that they actually don't know whether it's actually correct or not, right? You just get caught up into buying into, so-called authority figures. And, one of those is what you hear with Dr. Anthony Fauci. Luca, another YouTube listener, says, check out this headline. Breaking news, Dr. Anthony Fauci has won the $1 million Dan David Prize for defending science and speaking truth to power. Just like Cuomo. Remember, Cuomo was celebrated as, and still is, by the corrupt anti-science press. The corporate press, they celebrated Cuomo all the time as the great liberator, the great hero of COVID. And the man was covering up what he was doing to people in nursing homes. It's horrible. The dumbest policy you could imagine. Here's a story on dailycaller.com. Cuomo continues to blame feds, nursing homes for death toll. So he blames everybody but himself, just like a typical politician, just like a typical government bureaucrat. No skin in the game. Deflect, blame, take credit for anything that you didn't do that looks good. Democratic New York Governor Andrew Cuomo blamed the federal government and the nursing homes for the coronavirus death toll in his state. Cuomo suggested during a Monday press conference that he had been following federal guidance when he ordered nursing homes to accept COVID-19 patients once they had been discharged from hospitals. Cuomo began by saying that many of the nursing homes already had documented cases of COVID-19 before any patients came in from hospitals. Fact, of the 613 nursing homes, we have 613 nursing homes in the state. 365 received a person from a hospital. Of the 365 that received a person from this March 25th guidance, which was then superseded in May, 98% of those 365 already had COVID in their facility. COVID did not get into the nursing homes by people coming from the hospitals. He lied. Cuomo went on to blame staffers and visitors, saying that he had initially followed the available science that suggested the virus could only be spread by people who were showing symptoms. The COVID got into the nursing homes by staff walking into the nursing home when we didn't even know we had COVID. Cuomo continued. COVID may have been brought into a nursing home because visitors brought it in and didn't know they were contagious because the guidance was you can only be contagious if you have symptoms. So he's blaming everybody but himself. That's the glory of democracy, isn't it? That you elect these people through popularity contests, and these clowns are incompetent, they're unethical, they lie, they're immoral. And then when they get caught, all they do is just say, well, it was the hospital workers, it was the nursing home workers, it was the federal government, it was everybody but me. I magically did everything perfect, even though I had no skin in the game, I had no competence, I had no understanding of science, I had nothing but just a sycophantic, Luddite anti-science media cooing over every garbage line that I spit out. And that was alone enough to give me the cover to blather and take credit for stuff that he did nothing to help when it was good, and then to deflect responsibility for the myriad failures, immoral failures. You know, this is the exact opposite of what should be done in a pandemic. You should take the nursing home communities and you should protect them from having new folks admitted into their facilities that have this virus. You should also get them sunshine and fresh air and get them away from vegetable oil toxic sludge. But of course, that's asking too much of these bigots that hate science like Cuomo. That's asking too much. You see, they're bought and paid for by the big food, big industrial goop food. So they can't speak out of line. That wouldn't be what they are. They're puppets, muppets. They talk when they're supposed to talk, and they shut their mouths when they're supposed to shut their mouths. That's what happens when you sell your soul out to be a little slick politician, where you get your little book deal, you get your little sycophantic press, but in the end, all your lies they catch up to you, one by one. Meanwhile, a lot of people have to die in the meantime because of the stupidity of relying on government to solve your problems for you. They can't even tell you what to eat right. They failed on every level. They got us pumped full of toxic seed oils that stay in your body for years, even after you quit eating them, that produce DNA mutation that passes on into your kids and grandkids, according to the science that I've seen. And these seed oils are not meant to be consumed. They're industrial products created by industrial solvents that were only introduced into recent history. And we're in this giant global, worldwide lab experiment, an unethical lab experiment if there ever was one. Why? Because human beings won't stop worshiping the state, and therefore they give so much authority and faith in the state and its grand monopolies to plan out our lives for us, to tell us what health is, to fund the proper health research and medical ideas, and they fail, and they prop up failed ideas. They prop up the garbage trash science of Ansel Keys, who demonized saturated fat and cost us a generation or two of horrible health, horrible diseases. None of this stuff was needed. But this is the glory of worshiping dying false idols that want to be your nanny because it makes them and their friends rich and it makes them feel like they're gods. And so many people give them that every day. And it's a sad reality because you don't need to have that. You don't need to have these people having so much monopoly control over our lives that we believe that there are heroes when they send people into nursing homes with COVID, and they don't even teach these nursing homes what to feed these people. They're probably eating a lot of industrial seed oils in those places. They're probably eating hardly any real foods, fresh foods, right? Eating a lot of garbage. And then they'll be, oh, wow, everybody's having a hard time with this. But it's okay because Dr. Fauci's here, or Mr. Cuomo, here we go. Yeah, Dr. Fauci's the genius who wants to fund and did fund what? The gain of function labs like Wuhan lab? Oh, of course it had nothing to do with this outbreak. No. But of course, that's the kind of, even again, let's just assume that this Wuhan lab that Dr. Fauci spent years giving millions of your dollars, your taxpayer dollars, to do gain of function labs, to take viruses which were in the animal kingdom and try to move them into human cells, okay? So that they could come up with a vaccine if such a situation ever occurred in real life. So let's suppose that the Wuhan lab that Dr. Fauci took your money as a genius. He gave it to EcoHealth Alliance. EcoHealth Alliance funds the Wuhan lab. But let's say, just for the sake of argument, that it had nothing to do with this viral outbreak. Nothing. That Wuhan lab had nothing to do with it. Why is this guy considered to be the genius of our times when he tells us don't wear a mask, do wear a mask, don't wear a mask, do wear a mask, put 16 masks on, put 10 masks on, put 4 masks, and this is the same genius who's funding gain of function research in a time in which there's a good possibility that some such research like that fell out of a lab and caused a horrible situation. That's the guy that's considered the hero? Up is down, down is up. Again, assuming that that this outbreak did not have anything to do with the Wuhan lab that Dr. Fauci was funding through EcoHealth Alliance, run by Peter Daszak, who's the guy the WHO has tapped to be the investigator of the origins of the coronavirus outbreak. Convenient. Nice little skin in the game there for him. But just assume it had nothing to do with that lab. The fact that Dr. Fauci was funding labs like that, doing research like that, in the middle of what we've now realized was a horrible outbreak of a zoonotic virus, this coronavirus that's found in bats and what have you. The fact that this has created so much horrible misery, and Dr. Fauci thought it was okay to fund another country's lab without having proper verification of safety potentially. Again, assuming it didn't come from this lab, the fact that he would even fund such research, knowing what we know now. See, to me, it's just the height of arrogance and stupidity from government. That this is the kind of research that we're spending with our taxpayer dollars to give it to a country that is an adversary of our country in terms of things, and you're going to give them funding to do gain of function labs, and the guy who does that is considered the hero of our times for health? Again, just assuming for the sake of argument that the Wuhan lab had nothing to do with this outbreak. It's that those types of viruses, maybe we shouldn't be playing God with those viruses right now. Maybe we shouldn't be using taxpayer dollars. That means there's no skin in the game. Giving them to a crony group like EcoHealth Alliance, no skin in the game, no liability, and then they give them off to a foreign country's lab where they don't have any skin in the game to be accountable for you since you're the person that they use the money from to do it. That's the genius. That's the hero of our times, the guy that doesn't even know whether he should put masks on or not. And this guy is supposed to be the genius who's been spending his whole career waiting for these moments to happen so he could be our hero, and he doesn't know when the moment comes whether he should tell you to wear a mask or not. Doesn't know when we're going to open or not. Doesn't know when you're going to be able to go to a baseball game or not. But he sure knows that the best solutions are going to be things that can be patented. New drugs. He sure knows it's not going to be anything to do with a natural supplement or a dietary change. None of that has nothing to do. Dr. Fauci will never tell you to stop eating seed oils, even though you can look at the literature and see the inflammation, see the chronic illnesses that are associated with the increase in seed oils in different countries all over the world. But if he really was going to speak truth to power, he'd at least talk about seed oils and tell you, hey, it's time to, since I'm going to be your nanny, let me tell you what you should also do. Stop eating seed oils. But he can't do it. Can't do it. But that's considered a defender of truth against power. These people are totally insane. We'll take a quick break and return in just a moment. Hello, this is David Gronowski with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a sixth-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR.
Are you ready to transform your career? Jess Smith was too. She was stuck in a job that was controlling her life, consuming her free time, and offering little opportunity for growing her pay. Then she found FinTech Mortgage Association, and she never looked back. FinTech Mortgage Association makes home lending simple, and they take care of home buyers like family. Using technology to make everyone's life easier, FinTech Mortgage Association equips each of their loan solutions architects with the tools they need to build a career with a schedule they control, a product they can take pride in, and an earning potential that is life-changing. Unleash your true potential. Join FinTech Mortgage Association. Visit finmay.com. That's FINMAE.com. You're in charge now. NMLS ID 1492187. Equal housing lender.
Do you despise lawyers? That may be the case until you need one. If you've been in an auto accident and need legal advice, go to the local attorneys that have served Tampa Bay families for over 28 years. Catania and Catania. They are family owned. They understand your legal situation. When you need legal representation, Catania and Catania will care for your case from the beginning. And Catania. They don't get paid if you don't get families first. Offices, Tampa. Attorney spokesperson.
Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Gronowski. We're live. And I want to read some more comments here. Tina says, did Cuomo call to congratulate Fauci? Where is the justice? And Luca says, defenders of science is how the propaganda model functions. Science grants legitimacy. Fauci has no idea what he is doing and does not do science. And it's just if you say a name, somehow that gives it the reality for a lot of folks, you can, that's why I tell people say Jesus all the time in church, but it doesn't mean they're actually doing anything that looks like do not resist evil with violence. If you're cheerleading going off to new wars that you shouldn't be involved in, if you're cheerleading, using the state to punish every kind of matter of the heart, the little nanny state violations against victimless choices, nonviolent choices, then maybe you're not really thinking of Jesus when you use the word Jesus. The same goes for science, right? People say science, 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 but they have no idea what science actually involves. They have no idea what kind of humility they should engage in when they think about pronouncing one-size-fits-all decisions for people that are supposed to be based on science, but are actually based on political calculation and fear-mongering and hysteria oftentimes. And again, there's no hysteria really even involved in the garbage they've done. Look for seed oils. Dr. Fauci does not speak out against seed oils. If he wanted to save lives, he could speak out on seed oils and say, everybody check your labels, make sure you don't eat vegetable oils. When you go to restaurants, make sure they don't cook your food in vegetable oils. Make sure the packaging that you eat, the food stuff, you don't have vegetable oils. That's a great low-hanging fruit thing that would do a tremendous value to people's lives, especially the old folks who've been eating these vegetable oils for decades and decades and decades because of government telling them to do this. That would be a low-hanging fruit way to really turn the tide on people having horrible experiences with this virus. Getting rid of carbs and sugar is another thing, but if you could just get rid of seed oils, that's a huge, massive, improvement for people. But they can't do it. That's the opposite of courageous. It's cowardly. It's cowardly. And it's just going to continue as long as we continue to believe that government and politics is the place we should spend all of our energy, trying to prop up and solve problems with. I want to turn to the culture issue a little bit, back to the issue of the McWoke culture. That's the religion underpinning so much of the discourse in media today. This is a post by Michael Tracy. He says, the most disturbing thing about this radically expanded definition of harm is that some portion of the people claiming to be harmed by anodyne utterances of words probably are being sincere. Their psyches really are that fragile, and they are attaining positions of power. And I've talked about this a lot, that the McWoke postmodern religion is all about words more than physical reality. They don't care that they voted for a Biden-Harris administration that has made their entire career locking up flesh and blood human bodies into cages, throwing away people into cages for ridiculous sentences for nonviolent crimes where they're left to rot away without proper nutrition and health and different exposure to sunlight and everything. And these folks don't seem to really be bothered by it because they live in this kind of Gnostic delusion that it's all about this ethereal world of words. It's all about this getting out of the body and thinking about words. So everything they do in this new woke religion is all about words, words, words. Words harm me. And I think Michael Tracy is right that some people's psyches are really that fragile that words do send them off into a total, spiral. They do send them off into a total tizzy, total falling apart. And that's a scary thing, to think that people that emotionally and mentally fragile are being emboldened by the state, by promoting the funding and sensitivity training. That's all about this fragile McWokeism. They're going to continue to embolden this kind of Luddite anti-science, anti-reality ideology that demands total obedience. Will you obey? Are you going to obey them and shut your mouth on command? You're going to shut your mouth when they tell you that you're not allowed to like Shakespeare or many, many, many other things like it? Or are you going to maintain your human sovereignty? Andrew Sullivan has a piece out on the Weekly Dish, his blog, Why is Wokeness Winning? The Astonishing and Continuing Success of Left Illiberalism. A question I've wrestled with this past year or so is a pretty basic one. If critical race, gender, queer theory is unfalsifiable, postmodern claptrap, as I have long contended, how has it conquered so many institutions so swiftly? It's been a staggering achievement when you come to think of it. Critical theory was once an esoteric academic pursuit. Now it has become the core underlying philosophy of the majority of American cultural institutions, universities, media, corporations, liberal churches, NGOs, philanthropies, and of course, mainstream journalism. This summer felt like a psychic break from old school liberalism, a moment when a big part of the American elite just decided to junk the principles that have long defined American democratic life and embrace what Barry Weiss calls a mixture of postmodernism, postcolonialism, identity politics, neo-Marxism, critical race theory, intersectionality, and the therapeutic mentality. It's everywhere. Across the country, schools and colleges are dumping SATs so they can engineer racial equity and abolish the idea of merit. The Smithsonian backed the idea that working hard, showing up on time, and perfecting a task are functions of whiteness. I mean, it's great. It's hard to even read this, even when it's from someone criticizing it. It's so ridiculous it hurts your head. We'll take a quick break on A Neighbor's Choice and resume in just a moment after this short news break. In the meantime, send me a message on the live stream and we'll try to get to it in the course of this broadcast. Back in a moment.
Ronald Reagan will turn over in his grave if he saw what's going on today.
Crazy things are happening.
You cannot be afraid. You've got to stand up for what you believe is right.
But one thing is for sure.
You can't trust anybody.
For talk, news, and information, you can count on us.
Enough is enough. I mean, I almost blew a gasket.
Good for the country.
I know what I'm talking about. A lot of wackos out there.
Your connection to talk about it. The all-new News Talk 1040 WH.
Two storms moving across the country, an historic cold blast that parts of the South haven't felt in decades. Houston Police Chief Art Acevedo.
Will end in sight to these icy conditions until at least tomorrow. So we encourage people to stay off the highways, especially as soon as the sun comes down. We know that it's going to get from bad to worse in terms of the roadway conditions.
The Cy-Fair Fire Department in Houston says 6 patients have been hospitalized with carbon monoxide poisoning. There are more than 4 million power outages across 10 southern states. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says Congress will establish a September 11th type commission to look into the insurrection at the Capitol. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo says that administration did not cover up the number of nursing home deaths in the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Apologize. Look, I have said repeatedly, we made a mistake in creating the void.
Cuomo also says nursing homes were never forced to accept patients with COVID. Daria Albinger, ABC News.
A Neighbor's Choice returns. I'm David Granosky, your host here. We're just looking at some news stories and commentary and looking at this story by Andrew Sullivan talking about how did the woke stuff rise so fast? How did it win if it's based on such stupidity? But that's, again, is this assumption that folks make that politics is about reason and rationality. It's never been about that. It's about power and emotion. It's about desire and passion, things that are much closer to our tribal past. And when you disregard the protections, limitations to state power, protections of the individual person, if you demonize and attack the family, if you demonize and attack boundaries of differentiation, and you vilify even reason and merit itself as some kind of monstrosity, it's no wonder that you're going to have a wicked ideology based on sacrificial bigotry and hate that spreads so fast because you have no foundation culturally to respond to it. Liberalism in and of itself is not enough. You need something that's going to be rooted in truth, rooted in something transcendent. And I think you know what my answer to that is. Let's continue with Andrew Sullivan's piece, just to comment as we go about it. So they want to, across countries, they're dumping, across the country, schools and colleges are dumping SATs so they can engineer racial equity and abolish the idea of merit. The Smithsonian backed the idea that working hard, showing up on time, and perfecting a task are functions of whiteness. In California, there's a ballot initiative to legalize government discrimination on the basis of race, and a new mandate that company boards add members from underrepresented communities. Corporations who haven't publicly committed themselves to the full woke project are being hounded by their employees into doing so, meaning hiring and firing on the basis of race or forcing employees into re-education sessions guided by D'Angelo and Kendi. The NBA, for Pete's sake, is now a festival of wokeness, even as viewership collapses. Critical race theory propaganda like the New York Times 1619 Project can be exposed as untrue and unethical, but the paper can both debunk it in its own pages and still hail it as a triumph. 21% of liberal students in the Ivy League favor some level of violence to stop campus speech they disapprove of. There seems no stopping this. But why? Why this powerful, seemingly inevitable shift, especially among white elites? I'd posit some obvious reasons, but this is a rough guess, and I hope we can start a conversation here about the reason for this astonishing change and how better to engage it. The first, it seems to me, is emotional. The reason so many people marched this summer was because of a righteous revulsion at the visceral image of a black man being murdered slowly on the street by a bad white cop. This revulsion is a vital and important thing, and it's completely compatible with the liberal attempt to reform the cops and criminal justice to ensure equal treatment under the law for everyone of every race. In fact, there is considerable bipartisan support for a pragmatic shift. But this was emphatically not the core message of the Black Lives Matter movement, rooted in critical theory. BLM's critical race activists do not support reforming the police. They want to abolish them entirely. In fact, they demonize all cops as blanks, and they justify violence and exonerate crime as legitimate resistance to the far greater crime of white oppression. Liberals concerned about resilient racial inequality have simply decided to ignore this, or they think that a little radicalism is no bad thing in a polarized time, the usual no enemies to the left mantra in the era of Trump and white nationalism. I can see why people take this path of least resistance, but what we've seen is simply avoidance of the deeper issue of critical race theory's profound illiberalism, a dismissal of it, or an anti-woke position that sees opponents as mere hysterics and maybe racists. And the critical race theory advocates have brilliantly managed to construct a crude moral binary to pressure liberals into submission. Where liberalism allows neutrality or doubt or indifference, CRT demands an absolute and immediate choice between racism and racism defined by them. And no one wants to be a racist, do they? Legitimate anguish about racial inequality and the sheer terror of being publicly labeled a bigot have led liberals to surrender their core values to the far left. The second reason for CRT's triumph is that it's super easy. Social inequalities are extremely complicated things. A huge variety of factors may be in play: class, family structure, education, neighborhood, sex, biology, genetics, and culture are some of them. Untangling this empirically in order to figure out what might actually work to improve things is hard work. But when you can simply dismiss all of these factors and cite structural racism as the only reason for any racial inequality and also cover yourself in moral righteousness, you're home free. Those who raise objections or complications or cite nuances can be dismissed by the same easy method. Then there's the deep relationship between CRT and one of the most powerful human drives, tribalism. What anti-racism brilliantly does is adopt all the instincts of racism and sexism, seeing someone and instantly judging them by the color of their skin or sex, and drape them with a veil of virtue. You don't have to correct yourself when your tribal psyche makes you more cognizant of someone's visible racial differences and prejudges them. You don't have to resist this anymore. You can give in to your core nature and feel pride rather than shame. You get to have all the feelings of judging people entirely by their involuntary characteristics while actually dismantling racism and sexism. What's not to like? Social aspiration also plays a part. The etiquette of wokery is increasingly indispensable for high society. They mark you as someone high up in the American social hierarchy. The right words and phrases signal your ease in this elite. The wrong ones, like, quote, sexual preference, expose you as a rube, a bigot, or worse, a middle-class provincial. Rob Henderson argues that this aspiration to be in the upper classes helps explain why Asian Americans who are targeted for direct race discrimination under CRT nonetheless often support it. While money and education are tickets to the middle class, prizing diversity is a requirement to join the upper class. It's part of what the sociologist Pierre Bourdieu referred to as cultural capital, taste, vocabulary, awareness, and mannerisms, which give social advantages to those higher in the social hierarchy. Reinhem Salam has also written brilliantly about this. There's little doubt either, it seems to me, that there is a religious component to wokeness. A generation of nuns can feel bereft of transcendence and meaning, and becoming woke, like being born again, fills that spiritual hole. In an atomized and lonely age, feeling as if you are on the right side of history, banishing doubt, joining with countless of your fellow converts in marches and seminars, can abate the isolation and emptiness of it all. Many moderns want the experience of religion without God. With CRT, as in the past with communism, they can have it. But what also makes CRT so successful is ruthlessness. Those who hold a view of the world in which only power and the struggle for power matters have few qualms in exercising it. After all, under CRT, power is always on the side of the white, cis, heteropatriarchy, so payback is always fair play. Discriminating against the unwoke or whites or males or the cisgendered or Asian American is not just fair but vital. Shutting down speech protects the oppressed. Bullying on social media and in the workplace becomes a form of virtue. Mercy and forgiveness are mere buttresses for white supremacy. HR departments diligently identify dissidents and discipline them. Once you set up this system of censorship and fear, persecute a few prominent sinners, and encourage snitches, dissidents will increasingly self-censor and dissent peter out until the new orthodoxy is the only one. In the past, a new set of ideas could be engaged in a clash of argument and debate, but you'll notice that the advocates of what Wes Yang has called the successor ideology never debate any serious opponents of their position. This is because debate in a liberal society implies equal standing for both sides and uses reason to determine who's right or wrong. But there can be no both sides within CRT, no equation of racists and anti-racists, and debates are inherently oppressive. Logic, evidence, and reason are, in this worldview, mere products of white supremacy, forms of violence against the oppressed. In CRT, remember, there is no truth or objectivity. There are merely narratives. So yes, 2 + 2 = 5, and math is inherently a function of whiteness. And what racist is going to deny this? The truth is that liberal democracy is hard, counterintuitive, complicated, and requires self-restraint, reason, and toleration at levels most humans are incapable of. That's why it is such a rare and fleeting exception in the world today, and all but non-existent for the vast majority of human history. Critical race theory is much more attuned to human nature. It gives you the simplest template for understanding the world. It assigns you virtue if you assent. It gives you instant power over others purely because of your and their identity. And it requires nothing more than tribal instinct to thrive. That's why it's here to stay, and why the fight for liberalism is going to be long and hard and require as much courage, steel, and rigor as we can muster. But of course, an article like that has no place in the woke religion, does it, right? Because that requires thought, and that's evil. Logic is evil. Evidence is evil. Math is evil. And so these folks are trying to just continually double down into this. And look how quickly it swept over all these corporations. Again, now he doesn't understand, Andrew doesn't talk about anthropology in this story, but that would get a little bit closer to home, what we talk about on this show, that this wokeism is a more strident and aggressive imitation of Christianity than the kind of moderate type liberalism that it's trying to supplant. Liberalism has a lot of trappings that are also imitations of Christianity, but wokeism is a little bit more of like a fundamentalist fire and brimstone Christianity imitation, right? So it's a little bit more, it's got some more aggression, it's got some more insider-outsider type dynamics. And it's got more of a fire and passion, right? Whereas liberalism would be kind of like your mainline denominations of Christianity. This wokeism is a fundamentalist split off from that says, hey, no, you need to get on the program or you're a monster. And that's attractive for people because they are hungry for answers as to why they see victim everywhere. But they don't understand that haunting of victims is produced by Christianity, because Christianity is is the story that haunts the West the most. And Christianity is the story that says that God sides with those whom we persecute. God sides, he takes a stand in defense of those who we marginalize and oppress, just like they persecuted and marginalized Jesus. And Jesus' story comes into our life generation after generation for hundreds and hundreds of years, and it infects our sense making. It infects our way of thinking about politics, our way of thinking about the individual and justice, the way we think about getting along with others, and the institutions that we build around that are a product of Christianity saying, hey, let's stop using sacrifice and violence as our means of finding answers and start using reason and thinking and science and other things within our disposal that will be more in keeping with being made in the image of a loving and free will, right? And so that's where you get this transition away from human sacrifice and away from hierarchies mediated by, brutal violence, and towards a slow but sure move away from those kind of behaviors. And again, I say it's in fits and starts because, wars and terrible attacks have happened. Look at the 20th century and so forth. But it's something that is a process that Christianity has deconstructed the ways in which we used to, have order through sacrifice. And so the wokeism stuff is just the latest radical awareness of this experience. But again, it's a more radical, it's a more radical imitation of Christianity, but it's also a more radical rebellion of Christianity. It's trying to jump away from the forgiveness, the mercy, logic, evidence, and all the things that Christianity has cultivated in history. So we'll take a quick break and return in just a moment on A Neighbor's Choice. You can email me hello@aneighborschoice.com or drop us a comment or a question on our YouTube stream or Facebook stream. We'll try to get to it before the end of this broadcast. Back in a second. Who is your neighbor? Dave and Wally are team drivers for Oakley Transport. One day they came across a very serious accident on the highway. Some might pass on by, but Dave and Wally saw there was no time to waste. They jumped into action and saved 2 people's lives with moments to spare. That's the kind of courageous love we need more of today. It reflects the respected culture Oakley Transport develops with their driving professionals. CDLA licensed drivers. Join Oakley Transport today for a rewarding career. Visit oakleytransport.com. That's oakleytransport.com. Hello, this is David Gronowski with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a 6th-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR.
Some out-of-the-area law firms advertise that they are the largest, Do you think large firms help your case? Possibly, but your case will receive personal care from local attorneys Catania and Catania. They are family-owned, Tampa Bay attorneys representing clients who have experienced auto and motorcycle accidents. Your case with Catania and Catania will seek to get a settlement in your favor expeditiously. Catania and Catania, serving Tampa Bay families for over 28 years. Referrals on request. Get the local law firm that will care for your case from beginning to end. They don't get paid if you don't get paid. Catania and Catania, putting families first. Car accident, motorcycle accident, call the local attorneys. Catania and Catania. Offices Tampa, not attorney spokesperson.
Hi, this is Gary from Good Faith Homebuyers, and I buy houses cash. If you own your house and want to sell it fast, call me at 727-330-6224. That's 727-330-6224. I can pay cash and close fast. I buy houses in any condition, any price range, and any location. I'm not a realtor or associated with any realty company. I'm a private real estate investor who buys several houses a month and wants to buy more. I'll buy inherited houses, divorce houses, behind in payment houses. I'll even buy my tenant won't pay me the rent houses. Do you own a house that is trashed and needs thousands of dollars in repairs? Great, because I love buying junky houses. I buy vacant houses, abandoned houses, condemned houses, and foreclosure houses. If you own a house and want to sell it fast, call me at 727-330-6224. That's 727-330-6224.
Who is your neighbor? Dave and Wally are team drivers for Oakley Transport. One day, they came across a very serious accident on the highway. Some might pass on by, but Dave and Wally saw there was no time to waste. They jumped into action and saved two people's lives with moments to spare. That's the kind of courageous love we need more of today. It reflects the respected culture Oakley Transport develops with their driving professionals. CDLA licensed drivers. Join Oakley Transport today for a rewarding career. Visit oakleytransport.com. That's oakleytransport.com. So we got the circus music playing, which is great because we had to report on more nonsense in the news, unfortunately. Tony Blair says in the Daily Mail, the story, the world needs to agree a form of COVID passport and Britain should lead the way. So Tony Blair, the genius who got them into the Iraq war, right? He's got a story here. And he thinks that he said jobs and livelihoods have lost, a huge bill for future generations to pay. It means postponing the treatment of other conditions like heart disease and cancer and a deterioration of mental health. The reality, however, is that lockdown will stay until the vaccination program reaches a large enough number of the population to give us some form of herd immunity. So now herd immunity for the first time ever can only happen through vaccines, according to this genius who knows nothing about science and knows nothing about sound foreign policy. The new variants of COVID-19 with greater transmission rates but not lower deadliness, combined with the alarming recognition that more variants could be on the way, have left us a horrible choice: mass vaccination or mass lockdown. Globally, there is a vast scrambling to get vaccine. It is fortunate that Britain, with a well-executed plan to source vaccines, including our own Oxford AstraZeneca jab, is in a good place relative to the rest of the world. What happens, though, when a majority of our population is vaccinated but other countries lag behind? How does the world return to at least some of the physical interaction we used to take for granted? This is not just about holidays, it's about business travel and freight. It's about improving levels of confidence and going back to the workplace, traveling on public transport, joining events with large crowds, most of all, seeing loved ones, especially those who may be among the most vulnerable to COVID-19. With my team at the Institute for Global Change, I have looked at this from every angle and come to the conclusion there is no prospect of a return to anything like normal without enabling people to show their COVID status, whether that means they have been vaccinated or recently tested. And the good news is that technology allows us to make this work effectively and with privacy. More than 120 countries, including our own, already demand that international travelers show proof of a full negative test result before entry. Once vaccinations become widespread, this demand will naturally move to vaccination. Call it a passport, a certificate, or proof of status. We will want to know. We can't stay in a lockdown forever. But we know from experience that as we come out of lockdown, the disease will start to spread again unless we keep some form of controls on who can come into our country, and unless we take reasonable precautions to stamp on any outbreak should it recur. This is not about discrimination or hostility towards those not vaccinated or tested. It is completely understandable desire to know whether those we mix with might be carrying the disease. Have they had internationally recognized tests? Or to demonstrate that they are free from the virus? Have they been vaccinated? And if so, with 1 or 2 jabs? It is increasingly obvious that other countries feel the same. There is already a host of initiatives around the world with this aim in mind. My Institute for Global Change is involved in many of them, including the Common Pass initiative from the World Economic Forum. Individual countries such as Greece, which is conscious of the huge impact of COVID on its tourist industry, are calling for global agreement on the issue. The African Union has started its own preparations. The airline and tourism industries are among those most anxious for such a passport. Tourism accounts for roughly 10% of the world economy and employs millions the world over, including in Britain. And that means a wide range of businesses are clinging on effectively on government life support, provided, that is, they're lucky enough to be in countries where the government can just about afford to subsidize them. But without clear light at the end of the tunnel, without confidence in the future, these businesses are going to collapse. Some already have. Once it is plain that we need to know the status of someone in order to feel safe mixing with them, then certain other things must flow. We need a system of verification that is simple. For example, a QR code shown on a mobile, or a valid paper certificate, one that minimizes the possibility of fraud. We need something which is easily checked against an agreed set of standards. It is not as if proof of vaccination is completely new. Many countries already require travelers to show such proof for yellow fever and other diseases. What would be crazy is for the world to try operating with different standards, different means of verification, a patchwork of uncoordinated stack of competing systems. That would lead to chaos. Governments will have to lead this. We cannot leave it up to GPs to issue paper certificates when they already have quite enough on their plate. The sensible thing would be for the UK, which for 2021 has the lead in the G7 group of developed nations, to agree and help impose a common set of standards and rules in consultation with other countries and groups of nations. That would be in the interest of everyone, except everyone who disagrees with him, see? But that's what these folks are all about. Force, coercion, control, surveillance, war. The same genius who told you needed to send your kids off to fight in Iraq because it was an imminent threat with weapons of mass destruction is the same dumb liars who are telling you that you cannot have your freedom back unless you submit to some kind of universal certification or certification. This is stupidity right before our eyes. And we have to resist this. We have to resist this corporate fascism. Speak out against it. Don't be scared to stand up to these bullies. They're paper tigers. They act like they got all the answers figured out, but they don't understand that freedom is more powerful than their failed ideologies. Freedom is more powerful than their attempts to control the whole world, to use every crisis as an excuse to get more power and control over people, to get people to just submit that they can't have human health freedom. That's the basis of reality itself. The basis of our existence is the ability to have our own health freedom, so that you don't have to be forced into complying to one-size-fits-all solutions. That's the foundation for everything that we've been fighting for in this country. Liberty, human health, health freedom. Tony Blair didn't tell you once in that article to stop eating seed oils. It's because he's a liar. He's a puppet for giant corporations to make money off of people with weak, horrible, outdated ideas for how to do it. They can't compete in a free market, so they go to nanny government to try to control you for their profit. It's a sad thing. I'm David Gronowski. Email me hello@aneighborschoice.com. Godspeed.
Your home for news, talk, and information. 1040 WHBO Pinellas Park, Tampa Bay.